Hi, welcome to Lesson 4 of the COVID-19 lesson plan. So I want to talk a little bit about knife dueling. And I'm going to do some lessons on an introduction to knife dueling, at least the way that I teach it here. And one of the important things to note is a lot of instructors feel very uncomfortable about putting out knife material to the general public. They usually keep it for behind, closed doors sessions and whatnot. To me, in terms of the material that I'm going to be addressing in this is knife dueling. And for me, in the real in the modern United States, this basically never happens. It just doesn't. And I suspect in most first world countries, it never happens. There are certainly knife cultures out there that it does happen regularly, but not here. And so in general, I don't have a problem putting out this material because I don't think it's going to be used for ill intent. This is for a very particular set of circumstances. If you and I are both squaring off and we both have a knife and we're sort of strategizing about how we're going to attack the other person, you are in a very weird situation in the United States, and again, or other countries. So I don't have a problem putting out this material. I don't think it lends itself to ill use. Let's just put it that way. Okay, with that, on to the material. I want to start out, I want to talk with basically on guard positions. I'm assuming you have some background in Filipino martial arts or some other background, and have sort of an understanding of what a knife is. Right now I'm just addressing forward grip, and what a lot in this series of lessons you're going to get is sort of my approach to it. I have students that I've taught that have other approaches to it, and that's fantastic, and I'll actually bring them on at some point to sort of share that. But for right now, you're getting a little bit of my approach. Okay, so basic on-guard position. So for me, I'm very thrust-oriented with a knife. I'm using a big knife here for visibility in particular. As I talked about in the lesson on how to grip a weapon, I'm mostly using a saber grip on this one because I have a good thumb wrap on this particular trainer. And so you'll see that a lot. So in general, I want my weapon out in front. Okay, this left hand can do a number of different things. I tend to have it sort of waving, ready to check. I've seen some systems that will literally have it over their neck, which actually makes a whole lot of sense. That you've got this basically as guard over your heart, over your neck. Honestly, that one makes a lot of sense to me. I don't use it, but hey, it's a good suggestion. Or I'll have it back over here. It sort of depends on what I'm doing, what I'm monitoring, and where we're going from there. In general, I want to keep my point as a guideline rather than a rule. I want to keep my point towards my opponent here, right? If I was going to turn sideways, I'm going to keep this knife towards it. That isn't perfect. I will pull back, I'll move my knife, and sometimes I'll come back to blade. What I almost never do from an on-guard position, is ever have it to here, right? As a sort of a preparatory. Okay, this isn't a stick, it's not a machete, it's not something it's not a big thing that I need extra weight. I'm going to keep behind my point. And my point is I want it usually threatening it. I might come offline a little bit, so my point is now offline, but then I can cut, right? Here. I'm very seldom going to go this way on a big cut. You may see me do that here, or I may offer recovery because I've retracted back and then I'll make a bigger cut, but not usually if I'm cutting off of my initial stance. I want that generally, halfway between me and that. Every time I pull that back, that's extra travel time and telegraphing, as you've seen in some of my other lessons. Don't do that, right? So I want to be moving here and I want to cut, or here and I want to thrust. Two sort of core pieces of this would be straight thrust. And so one, I think I learned this from James Keating, would be on his Boeing material would be a straight thrust right between the eyes, and that will come right off this on guard position from here. That would be with a forward lunge, moving around, and right into that one. And then I will use the same thing here with the key would be our number 3 thrust, coming in this way or this way. But again, it's not going to be 1, 2, 3. It's just taking that line as I go into there. So those are going to be core components of your early long distance thrusting. number 2 and number 1 slashes are obviously there as well. Here, I can drop my point down. I can come back with my slash from here. But again, I want to be moving here, mobile, be able to move my upper body, thrust, here, move around, cut, right? All of my 5 attacks, I want to be able to move and thrust, okay? And you're seeing me use this other hand. Again, that comes out of sort of core Pikiti training of keeping this other hand, whatever you're going to use it for. But again, this is your sort of basic on ready position. So now, again, this is more your sort of on guard movement position. We don't really do a lot of formal, high guard, inside, that's not really, this knife, especially with a lack of a big guard, you basically are never blocking with it. So there's no saber type inside and outside guards. You're much more avoiding or counterattacking the opponent's limb. So the defensive structure of the weapon, you're defending against the other person's limb rather than their knife. And that becomes increasingly true the smaller this knife goes. Obviously, if I'm defending with myself, right, this Peter Pan stuff isn't happening, right? That's just not that's just not going to happen. So if you cut at me, I'm not going to try to block your knife. I'm going to cut your hand, right? So that's kind of sort of the basic principles. I want to be able to move. I want to flow, right? If you're blocky and tense here, you're going to telegraph. You're going to be awkward. So you got to have a nice, relaxed flow as you move around, right? Getting my upper body moving. A lot of times with knife work, I don't have a lot, not to say I don't have footwork, clearly I have footwork, but a lot of it, it's so fast, and admittedly this is true of all weapon work, that especially against the upper body, a lot of this is going to come out of those wave in, wave out motions. Here, boom, pop. As you're going to get these body leans, and as you move around, pop. Right? So you want to have that upper body mobility as you're moving in here, and all of that is allowing you to cheat on range a little bit as you get forward, and then you come in with your thrust or move back out. So again, this is just on guard. There isn't anything really fixed about it. I don't actually, I will train how to strike non-telegraphically, but once you're into this, you just have to learn how to do it from there, right? It's not necessarily like, oh, and now you do this. So anyway, that's your basic on guard position. From here, we'll build into other lessons. See you next time.